Tate Chronicles now transmitting.
Welcome to the Tate Chronicles on Healthcare Now Radio. And now, here's your host, Jim Tate.
Good day, citizens of the free world, from border to border, coast to coast, and to all the ships at sea, I bring you a warm welcome. This is your correspondent, Jim Tate, and thank you for tuning in to the Tate Chronicles. Join me as we cut through the fog that exists at the leading edge of healthcare technology. My guest today is none other than Joe Kingland, Managing Partner and CEO of Blue Team Alpha, a cybersecurity company. Joe is a veteran of the U.S. Navy Submarine Force and was the Chief Security Officer and Chief Privacy Officer for a multi-brand organization with more than 4,000 locations in 30 countries. Blue Team Alpha is involved in cyber security across multiple domains, but today, of course, we're going to focus on their work in safeguarding healthcare data. Joe, good afternoon, and thanks for joining the Tate Chronicles.
Yeah, good afternoon, and thank you for having me.
I'm going to kind of cut to the chase here, Joe. With your decades of frontline experience, you've seen the evolution of cyber risk over time related to healthcare data. Where do you put the threat level compared to 10 years ago?
Oh, the threat level today is much higher than it was 10 years ago. Calls that the threat actors are using today have really just exponentially increased the cyber risk to healthcare organizations, and that coupled with just the pure any kind of safety rails and remove those so they don't have any issues going after.
Is that high? All they need is some sophisticated tools and access to the internet, right?
So just the way that the cyber criminal market is put together at this point really allows them to get in at whatever level they would like to.
You know, when we talk about cybersecurity in healthcare, Joe, I guess there's a couple sides that we're talking to here. There's certainly a need for protection from supposed bad actors, but there's also a need for good processes, such as strong passwords and secure backups and things like that. So it's a multi-pronged aspect of cybersecurity for healthcare.
Organizations will lean very, very heavily on things, work on prevention, but also at the same time start getting ready for when you have an issue, and then have absolutely no plan when the attackers get through. There are no silver bullets here. If there were silver bullets, we wouldn't be having this conversation.
Yeah.
So, and you also can't just focus on what happens when when an attacker gets through or how you handle an incident, because if you just focus on that, that's all you're going to do is just actually operate your incident response plan. So you really need to take a balanced approach to your cybersecurity maturity model and your cybersecurity program.
So you're talking there, Joe, about two aspects of coverage there. I guess, as you mentioned, one is doing everything you can to prevent an attack, and we'll get into the details of that, but also to have the workflows and knowledge and aspects similar to that when an attack, if it is successful, occurs, how do you keep your process going forward, your business process?
Conversation about if an attack happens and it gets through and it's successful, here are everybody's jobs during those times. If these things are never talked about or practiced, or even say, backups are not tested and tried to be recovered from, or even had a backup architecture review. These are some things that you can do on the preparation side, that at how those backups are architected and look at it from an attacker's point of view. Can the attacker get to those backups? Can they delete them, manipulate them, corrupt them, do other things to those backups maybe with shared credentials or things like that. So there are just some scenarios that need to be talked and walked through that to really understand how a company, how your organization is going to respond when these things happen.
Let's talk about some potential what ifs. And I guess one of the questions I have, Joe, is certainly a banking system. The threat to a banking system may be somebody may attempt to get access to currency, to money, to electronic transfers, things like that. But in the case of healthcare systems, is it predominantly ransomware we hear about, or is there any actual value in the data that may be taken?
Yeah, there is value in the data. And you're right, but a lot of what you hear about is ransomware. In fact, Blue Team Alpha's very first incident was a hospital that suffered a ransomware attack. But on the data exfiltration side, where they're going and they're looking for sensitive data, they're looking for patient records or any kind of information that they can get that they think is valuable to the organization, they're going to at a minimum claim that they stole it. They may or may not have actually stolen it, or they may take parts of it, but they're absolutely going to be looking for that kind of information. They're also going to be looking for your insurance plans, by the way, so that they can see how much ransom they can try to get out of the insurance company. But they're going to take that and they're going to try to monetize it. The patient records themselves don't really equate much into money on an individual basis. They're really using it to extort the healthcare organization into paying for deletion, or otherwise trying to keep it quiet. Right. And intimidate organizations into paying a ransom or a higher ransom than maybe they would otherwise.
Something that you mentioned, I really haven't thought too much about, Joe, and that's the issue of healthcare entities' insurance against the effects of a cyber attack. Is that pretty standard? I mean, they have $5 or $10 million of coverage, or what have you seen out there?
Yes. Typically, the healthcare organizations will have cyber insurance policies. Some have a few. They'll try to build kind of an insurance tower to protect against these things. So that is very, very, very common. It's interesting. Only about 30% of organizations in the United States actually have cyber insurance, but I think it's much higher than that in the healthcare industry. That is the pull the ripcord, emergency last stand that you make is when you pull that cord. Before that happens, you should absolutely have an instant response company on retainer. Hopefully, you've got a breach coach that's also on retainer to kind of guide you and help you through those things. Because if you have people on retainer beforehand, your response will be far, far faster than if you're going to try to run through the insurance pipeline and go that route. Plus, you'll know who you're doing. Exactly.
Blue Team Alpha. In certainly in the healthcare space, what type of customers do you have, and what services do you provide to them?
Yeah, so we have anywhere from of these ransomware groups. They know they can get a lot of leverage if they have a successful attack. People need things back up and running very quickly, and they are successful at gaining payment from them. So segmentation going on, if there's proper firewalling between the different device types, and so that if there is a problem, that it is somewhat contained to that area, because as it really can be, and the interconnectivity is allowing for everything to function, and at the same time really making it a headache for anyone that would be trying to attack. If they're trying to conduct multiple attacks to try to get to the core of a healthcare system, that threat actor is probably going to lose interest. So looking at those types of things, we do tabletop exercises for healthcare organizations, walk them through what, like I said, our very first incident to response side, that we can draw on that experience and walk a company through what that looks like, and discuss people's roles, look at their incident response plans and those kinds of things. Yeah, of course, the standard stuff, penetration testing, physical security testing, all of those types of things as well. But really in the realm and world of incident response and healthcare organizations, that's really where we shine. You mentioned incident response, and I guess that receives an email that has a link in it, and they click on that link, and it's as simple as that, giving somebody access to their user account. Do you see, relatively success in these unsophisticated attacks, as well as, ones that may come from really knowledgeable attackers? Yes, and phishing, the phishing attacks now are emails with poor grammar and and misusing of words. I think those days are gone. If not gone, they're very numbered, due to the use of things like ChatGPT, and there are other tools that are made specifically for drafting phishing emails now that have.
Right. To our audience, if you just joined this episode, I'm Jim Tate of the Tate Chronicles, and I'm speaking with Joe Kingland of Blue Team Alpha. And the topic is healthcare cybersecurity. Something else you mentioned, Joe, a few minutes ago is security related to devices. What do you mean? What do you mean by that? Why is there a risk related to devices?
So much on what the device can do, right? And the cutting edge technology that these devices really are bringing to the medical practice, and that's fantastic. One area, and this happens not just in medical devices, but in across the board in technology. But one area that is often overlooked is really the misuse of the device, the security of the device. And this is an industry-wide problem in technology. Mm-hmm. These devices can have vulnerabilities. They can be very, very bad vulnerabilities. And if a device type is exploited, that are segmented from other types of medical devices. You wouldn't say an office worker or a nurse's station's device being on the same network as some of the medical devices that maybe could be then manipulated to no longer function, and they stop monitoring actual people and doing their medical job. So really making sure that having that segmentation, having those things not talking to one another, except for in the cases where they need to function, is really, really key. And just doing some really critical in these cases.
Joe, in relation to that, I've heard about some hacking processes where a device obtained from a third party may have its own internal software, and that from time to time it's necessary for a new version of that device's software to be upgraded, and a hack can occur into that third party's software, and then when the upgrade takes place, it really carries that threat directly into the system.
Yes, and there are the examples of that shipping equipment all over the world,
Mm-hmm.
and they're able to manipulate the software on those devices, or the software that's getting installed on lots of different devices in lots of different places, because they're going to get access to. They have the potential to get access to a lot of different networks all over the world, and they can sell that access.
Joe, I hope we're not giving any ideas out there to anybody.
Well, you're definitely not. This has happened plenty in the past. It's nothing.
Sure.
Nothing overly new.
Right.
That's what happened with SolarWinds, right? When you hear about the SolarWinds breach, that's
Correct.
What happened to them. They unfortunately, their source code was manipulated at SolarWinds. So as the source code, as these updates were rolling out to all of these people that had the software, that gave access then to the threat actors, and across all of these different completely otherwise completely dissimilar and disparate computer networks.
Well, yeah, that's scary. Over the last decade or so, more and more healthcare data is stored in the cloud. Does that create a softer target, or does it matter whether it's local servers or cloud-based data? Is there any thoughts you have about that in terms of how hard the target is?
Well, I would say that it does. Centralizing records inside of one place, whether it's your computers or someone else's computer, which is what the cloud is, can create both challenges and also one really big juicy target. So a couple of things. A lot of places, even though they centralize their records inside of maybe a cloud-based EMR, I find that a lot of healthcare organizations still have local copies. Copied in, got via email, got via some other secure messaging system, and just put on the workstations or in some kind of a file share. That data is still very, very vulnerable. And then to the second point, when you create a cloud-based EMR system to an attacker, that's just really, really juicy. They'll take a long time to try to get into that, because the payday on the back end of it is going to be pretty significant. That all said, upgrades, it removes some of the administrative burden from the local technology teams, which are usually also the communications. Generally speaking, those communications are over encrypted protocols, and by this time, everybody should be off of the old encryption protocols that are no longer secure.
Joe, it's hard to believe, but all the sand has almost totally run through our hourglass today, and we've just touched on really some of the high points. But how can our listeners find more about the services and products offered about Blue Team Alpha?
Yeah, absolutely. You can come and visit us at blueteamalpha.com, and you'll see all of our services listed right there.
Well, to our audience, thanks for joining me on this episode of the Tate Chronicles, and I certainly offer a special salute to my guest today, Joe Kingland of Blue Team Alpha. Joe, thanks for coming aboard today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure.
You can find more information on this show's program page at healthcarenowradio.com. Until we meet again, here's wishing you smooth sailing and safe harbors.
Tate Chronicles transmission ending now.